The rhythmic rasp of sandpaper on oak was the only sound in the garage, a soft, dusty metronome counting out a quiet Saturday afternoon. I felt his presence before I saw him, that restless energy a teenager has, even when standing still. Leo leaned against the doorframe, a silhouette against the bright summer day, the blue light of his phone casting an artificial glow on his face. He'd been quiet for a good 10 minutes, which usually meant he wanted something, probably the car keys. I set the block of wood down, wiping a thin film of sawdust from my brow with the back of my hand. "Find a new game on that thing?" I asked, my voice a little rough. He shrugged, his thumb still flying across the screen. "Nah. Same old stuff. Graham said you needed help out here." "I'm fine," I said, picking up the wood again. It was a small box, for his grandmother. Anniversary. 50 years. The wood was smooth now, like river stone. "Just finishing this," he grunted in response, a sound of pure, unadulterated teenage indifference. I sighed. We were worlds apart, this boy and I. My world was wood grain and memories. His was glass screens and fleeting digital moments. "You know," I started, trying to build a bridge across the silence. "This smell, the sawdust. It reminds me of something. A different smell, but just as strong. The smell of wet earth, rain, and 500,000 people all gathered in one place." He looked up, a flicker of curiosity in his eyes, quickly extinguished. "Weird." "It was," I agreed. "It was the summer of '69. I was about your age. A little older, maybe. My friend Sam and I. We heard about this music festival. An Aquarian exposition, they called it. 3 days of peace and music." I chuckled, the memory bubbling up. Sounded like a good deal to us. Leo pocketed his phone, but his posture was still loose, disinterested. "You mean like Coachella or something?" "Something like that," I said, "and something entirely different. There were no tickets left, you see. Sold out. But we'd heard a rumor that the fences weren't finished. That if you got there early enough, you could just walk in." So, we piled into Sam's van, a busted-up blue Ford Econoline we called the Wanderer. It barely ran, leaked oil like a sieve, and the radio only picked up one station. But to us, it was a chariot. The sanding stopped. My hands stilled on the oak box, but in my mind, I was gripping the cracked vinyl steering wheel of the Wanderer. The windows down, the hot August air whipping through my hair. We thought we were clever, leaving 2 days early. We packed a few sandwiches, a couple gallons of water, and a tent that Sam's dad had used in the army. We felt like pioneers heading west. But about 50 miles from this little town called Bethel, New York, the whole world came to a stop. It wasn't an accident. It was just cars. A river of steel and glass, stretching as far as the eye could see. Volkswagens painted with flowers, school buses full of people with guitars, beat-up station wagons with whole families inside. The highway had become a parking lot. Leo shifted his weight. "So you were stuck?" For a while, people got out of their cars. Someone started playing a guitar. A girl with bells on her ankles started dancing on the roof of a Beetle. We shared our water with a family whose car had overheated. They gave us some peaches. For hours, we just existed there, together. The journey had become part of the festival. We weren't angry about the delay. It felt right, inevitable. We were all being pulled to the same place. Eventually, we did what everyone else was doing. We grabbed what we could carry, left the Wanderer on the shoulder of the New York State Thruway, and we started to walk. I could feel the phantom weight of the canvas tent on my back, the strap digging into my shoulder. I could hear the distant, muffled thump of a sound check, a bass note carried on the wind. We walked for miles, through fields, over fences. The crowd just grew and grew, a tributary of people flowing into a great human ocean. And then, we crested a hill, and we saw it, a valley, a huge, sloping, natural amphitheater, and it was already filled with people. Tents, blankets, a sea of color. It looked like a garden of humanity had bloomed overnight on that dairy farm. The fences they were supposed to build? They were gone. It was free. Everyone was just walking in. The rumor was true. "You just walked in?" Leo's voice had lost its bored edge. "We just walked in," I confirmed. We found a spot halfway up the hill, a decent patch of grass with a view of the giant stage. We were exhausted, hungry, but we felt like we'd arrived at the center of the universe. Sam and I just sat there for an hour, not even talking, just watching people build this temporary city around us. A city with no rules, no police, just an understanding. We looked out for each other. That first night, we ate the last of our sandwiches and listened to Richie Havens. I'd never heard of him. He wasn't even supposed to open the show, but the other bands were stuck in the traffic, the same traffic we just walked through. He got on that stage, just him and his acoustic guitar, and he played his heart out. He ran out of songs, so he just started improvising, chanting this one word over and over: freedom. And 250,000 people, all of us strangers, we felt it. We were it. That word hung in the air long after he left the stage. I picked up a piece of fine grit paper, my movements slower now, more deliberate, as if tracing the shape of the memory itself. The next day, the rain came. It wasn't a gentle shower. It was a biblical sky-opening up kind of downpour. The grassy hill we were on turned into a river of mud. Our tent, that old army tent, gave up in about 20 minutes. Everything we had was soaked. The music stopped. We were cold, we were miserable, and we were trapped. There was no leaving. The roads were impassable. We had no food, no dry clothes. It could have been a disaster. It should have been a disaster. What did you do? Leo's question was quiet, earnest. He'd moved closer, and was now sitting on a stool beside my workbench. His phone was nowhere in sight. That's the part I don't think anyone who wasn't there can ever truly understand, I said, my voice softening. That's when the magic happened. The people from the town, Bethel, they started showing up. They made thousands of sandwiches and handed them out for free. A group called the Hog Farm set up a kitchen and were feeding anyone who was hungry, no questions asked. A helicopter flew in medical supplies. The announcer on the stage, he wasn't just introducing bands anymore, he was making announcements. So-and-so is having a baby at the medical tent. Don't take the brown acid. And most importantly, he kept telling us to look after each other. And we did. Sam and I were huddled under a flimsy plastic tarp with about 10 other people we'd never met. A guy who looked like a Viking passed around a bag of dried fruit. A girl with flowers painted on her face shared her blanket. We weren't a crowd anymore, we were a tribe. The mud and the rain, it didn't break us. It washed away all the little things that kept us apart, it made us one. The smell of ozone, the heavy wet scent of the air before a storm, filled my senses. I could feel the cold dampness seeping into my bones, followed by the surprising warmth of a stranger's shoulder pressed against mine. When the rain finally stopped, the music started again. And it was glorious. It was like the world was being reborn in sound. Janis Joplin. She screamed all our pain and all our joy right back at us. The Grateful Dead played a set that felt like it bent time itself. Creedence Clearwater Revival had us all on our feet, dancing in the mud. But for me the moment came late on Saturday night. The Who took the stage. The sun had long set, and the only light came from the massive towers flanking the stage. They were loud, louder than anything I'd ever heard. It wasn't just music you heard with your ears. It was a physical force. You felt it in your chest, in your teeth. Pete Townshend smashing his guitar. It wasn't just destruction, it was a release. It was everything our generation felt, all the frustration with the war, with the establishment, all the pent-up energy, exploded into that one moment. In the darkness, surrounded by hundreds of thousands of muddy people, I felt completely, utterly alive. I paused, letting the memory of that sound fade. We met so many people. There was a girl named Daisy. She had a laugh that sounded like wind chimes. We shared a piece of watermelon and talked for an hour about art and astronomy while Santana played. I thought she was the most beautiful person I'd ever seen. Then the crowd shifted, and she was gone. I never saw her again. There was a veteran, a guy who'd been in Vietnam. He was quiet, had this haunted look in his eyes. He didn't say much, but during Joan Baez's set, when she sang "We Shall Overcome," I saw tears streaming down his face. He was just one person, but he was all of us. We were all there for our own reasons, carrying our own baggage. But for 3 days, we set it down. We set it down in that muddy field and just were. What about Sam? Leo asked. A shadow passed over the memory. Sam got his draft notice 2 months later. He went. He saw things that changed him. The guy who came back wasn't the same kid who'd danced in the mud with me. The festival, it was like a dream we woke up from. For some of us, the real world was waiting, and it was harsh. The garage felt quiet again, the weight of that truth settling between us. The last morning, most people had started to leave. We were tired, caked in mud, and hadn't slept in what felt like a week. But we stayed. We'd heard Jimi Hendrix was closing the festival, and you didn't leave before Hendrix. The sun was just coming up, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The crowd had thinned to maybe 30,000, the diehards. And he walked out on that stage, dressed in white and blue, looking like some kind of psychedelic wizard. He started to play the Star-Spangled Banner, but it wasn't the anthem I knew. It was something else. He made that guitar scream. He made it cry. He turned it into the sound of rockets and bombs and sirens and weeping. It was terrifying, and it was beautiful. It was a protest and a prayer all at once. He took our national song, broke it apart, and put it back together as a question. He was asking all of us, this is our country. What are we going to make of it? In that moment, watching the sunrise over that ravaged, muddy field, with that sound washing over me, I understood. It wasn't just about the music, or the mud, or getting away from our parents for a weekend. It was about a moment in time when a generation of kids believed we could build a different kind of world. A world based on peace, on looking after your neighbor. A world where you could leave your van on the side of the highway and walk for miles, trusting that you were heading somewhere good. I set the sandpaper down. The box was finished. Its surface was as slick and warm as a memory held for 50 years. We never found the wanderer. We hitched a ride back with a farmer who thought we were crazy but seemed to like us anyway. When I got home, my parents were furious. I was grounded for a month, but I didn't care. I was different. The world looked different. That feeling, that we could be better, I've carried it with me my whole life. In here, I tapped my chest. Sometimes it fades. The world grinds you down, but it never goes away entirely. I looked over at Leo. He was staring at the box, but I knew he wasn't seeing it. He was seeing a field in upstate New York. He was hearing the echo of a guitar. He reached out and ran his fingers over the smooth oak. "Daisy," he said softly. "You never saw her again?" "Never again," I said. She was like the festival itself. A perfect, fleeting moment that you could never get back, but you'd never, ever forget. He nodded slowly, his eyes meeting mine. The gap between us, that vast chasm of years and experience, felt smaller. For the first time, he wasn't just looking at his old grandfather. He was looking at the young man who walked for miles to listen to music in the rain, the boy who shared his last sandwich with a stranger and believed, if only for 3 days, that peace and love could actually change the world. "Wow," he breathed, a single word that held more meaning than anything he'd said all day. That's a hell of a story, Grandpa." "It was," I said, a slow smile spreading across my face. It was a hell of a time to be alive. And in the quiet of the garage, filled with the clean scent of fresh-cut oak, I handed him the box, a vessel for new memories, built by hands that had once been covered in the mud of Woodstock.